I never imagined that one evening in my own living room would mark the beginning of a shift I could never take back. My stepson had always been polite, distant in the way children of blended families often are, and I respected that. I didn't push too hard, I didn't demand closeness, I simply tried to be present when he needed something. For years, it worked, a quiet balance where he had his space and I filled the role of support from the sidelines. But then came the request that tilted everything. It was late, my husband was away on another business trip, and my stepson hovered in the doorway, looking unsure. He asked if I could help him with something small, nothing dramatic, just a school project that required more attention than he could manage alone. I agreed without hesitation, happy to finally be useful to him in a direct way. At first, it was just about gathering supplies, discussing ideas, and offering encouragement. Simple enough. Yet what struck me wasn't the task itself but the way he spoke. He wasn't guarded like before, he looked at me with trust, as if my opinion mattered more than I realized. His voice carried a vulnerability I hadn't heard, a kind of openness that pulled me in. He laughed at one of my clumsy suggestions, not mockingly but warmly, and in that laugh I felt a connection I hadn't expected. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was overthinking a harmless exchange, but even as we finished the work and sat in quiet satisfaction, I knew something had shifted. It was just a project, just a small request, yet the way it lingered in my chest told me it was anything but simple. After that night, something in the air between us felt different. I noticed how easily our conversations flowed, no longer filled with the awkward silences I had grown used to. He would linger longer in the kitchen when I made coffee, ask about my day, or casually bring up small details about his life that he never shared before. At first, I convinced myself it was just progress, that he was finally letting his guard down with me. But underneath that reasoning, I felt something else growing, something I didn't want to name. One evening, he thanked me for always listening, his words quiet but deliberate. He said I was easier to talk to than anyone else in the house, even his own father. That admission unsettled me. I wanted to feel proud, but instead there was a rush of warmth I shouldn't have felt. The sincerity in his eyes held me still, and I caught myself studying him longer than I should have. It was dangerous, yet I didn't pull back. Boundaries started to blur in ways that felt subtle but undeniable. Sitting too close when we worked on something, brushing against each other in narrow spaces, the accidental touches that lingered just a moment too long. His laughter filled the house, and every time it did, it reached somewhere deep inside me I thought had gone quiet years ago. I began anticipating his presence, finding excuses to stay near him, even when there was no real need. I kept telling myself it was innocent, that he saw me only as someone who cared, but the more time we spent together, the harder it became to ignore the current beneath the surface. I was helping him, yes, but I couldn't deny that I was helping myself too. It happened on a night that seemed ordinary. The house was quiet, my husband away again, and my stepson sat beside me, both of us lost in a conversation that had drifted far from where it began. He spoke about his struggles, his fears of not being enough, and I listened with a focus that felt heavier than simple care. When his voice cracked, I reached out without thinking, my hand resting on his shoulder. It should have been nothing more than comfort, but the way he leaned into it made my breath catch. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was charged, thick with something unspoken that neither of us dared acknowledge. His eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw not just a boy seeking reassurance but a man standing in front of me, waiting. I should have looked away, but I didn't. I stayed in that gaze until everything rational inside me collapsed under the weight of it. The first touch wasn't planned. My fingers lingered longer than they should have, and his hand found mine in a way that erased every boundary we had kept. The closeness built slowly, almost hesitant, until hesitation disappeared altogether. One moment we were on opposite sides of a line we both knew existed, and the next we were crossing it without hesitation, pulled by a force that had been growing quietly for weeks. I knew what we were doing was wrong, but in that moment, nothing felt wrong. It felt inevitable, like every small step had been leading to this point. When it was over, the reality hit me with crushing clarity. There was no taking it back, no pretending it hadn't happened. That night, everything between us, and within me, changed forever. The morning after carried a weight that pressed down on every breath I took. He avoided my eyes at first, moving quietly around the kitchen as if silence could erase what we both knew had happened. I tried to act normal, to prepare breakfast the way I always did, but every gesture felt unnatural, every word heavy with the memory of the night before. When he finally looked at me, there was no innocence in his gaze anymore. It wasn't anger or regret exactly, but something complicated, something that mirrored the conflict churning inside me. I wanted to tell him it was a mistake, that we had to forget it, but the words refused to come. Part of me clung to the way he had held me, to the intimacy I hadn't felt in years. Another part of me trembled at the thought of what would happen if anyone ever found out.